You're pacing around your apartment, frustrated, angry. Maybe someone at work completely screwed you over. Maybe your friend said something that hurt. Maybe you're just tired of everything, and you look at your dog, or your cat, or whatever creature shares your space, and you just unload. Can you believe what she said to me? Like, who says that? And you know what the worst part is? And you're not gently talking, you're venting, full volume, hand gestures, the whole thing. Your pet is just sitting there, staring at you, maybe tilting their head, maybe yawning, but you keep going, because somehow yelling at your cat about your terrible boss makes you feel better than calling an actual human would. And then someone walks in, a roommate, a partner, your mom. Who are you talking to? And suddenly you feel ridiculous. Oh, just telling Max about my day. They laugh, or they look concerned. Either way, you feel caught, like you've been doing something embarrassing. But here's the truth. You weren't just venting to your pet. You were releasing something that would have poisoned you if you'd kept it inside. This is the psychology of people who vent to their pets. And if you do this, if you unload your rage, your frustration, your pettiest complaints onto a creature that literally cannot respond, you're not unhinged, you're not pathetic, you're doing something that's keeping you sane. Let's start with what's actually happening when you vent to your pet. Because this isn't the same as having a calm conversation with them. This is different. You're not looking for advice. You're not looking for comfort. You're looking for release. Psychologically, when you experience frustration or anger, your body goes into stress mode. Your heart rate increases, your muscles tense, cortisol floods your system, and all of that needs somewhere to go. Most people suppress it. They swallow the anger. They tell themselves to calm down. They try to be the bigger person. And that works for a while, until it doesn't, because unexpressed emotion doesn't disappear. It accumulates. It builds pressure in your chest. It sits in your jaw. It makes you clench your fists without realizing it. It turns into headaches, insomnia, irritability at things that shouldn't bother you. But when you vent to your pet, that pressure releases. You're externalizing the emotion, giving it shape, letting it out of your body, and your nervous system finally gets permission to regulate. This is what psychologists call emotional catharsis. You're purging the feeling, not by suppressing it, not by analyzing it, just by letting it exist out loud. And your pet, they're the perfect witness. Here's why you vent to your pet instead of a human. Because when you vent to a human, they do things that make it worse. They try to fix it. Well, why don't you just... You don't want solutions. You want to be angry for 5 minutes. They play devil's advocate. Okay, but maybe she didn't mean it that way. You don't need perspective. You need validation. They make it about themselves. Oh my God, that reminds me of when my boss... And suddenly you're not venting anymore. You're listening to their story. Or worse, they get uncomfortable with your anger. You're getting really worked up. Maybe you should calm down. And now you feel like you're the problem, like your feelings are too much. So you stop, you shut down, you apologize for being emotional. And the anger you were trying to release, it goes right back inside. But your pet doesn't do any of that. Your pet doesn't try to fix you, doesn't minimize your feelings, doesn't get uncomfortable with your intensity. They just exist while you exist. And that's all you needed. Let's talk about what you actually say when you vent to your pet. Because it's not filtered, it's not polite, it's not the version you'd say to a human, it's raw. She's such a bitch. I'm sorry, but she is. And everyone knows it, but nobody will say it, and I'm so tired of pretending like... You say things you wouldn't say out loud to anyone else. The mean thoughts, the petty observations, the irrational anger. You tell your dog that you hate your coworker's voice, that your friend's boyfriend is annoying, that you're sick of your family's bullshit, things that would make you sound like a terrible person if you said them to a human. But with your pet, no judgment. They don't tell you to be kind. They don't remind you to see both sides. They just let you be human, messy and imperfect and occasionally spiteful. And there's something psychologically necessary about having a place where you can say the ugly thoughts without consequence. Because pretending those thoughts don't exist doesn't make them go away. It just makes them louder in your head. But when you say them out loud to your pet, they lose power. They stop being this big, shameful secret and become just words, temporary feelings, normal human reactions, and somehow that makes them easier to let go of. Here's the part people don't talk about. You vent to your pet because humans have made venting unsafe. When you vent to a person, it gets stored. They remember. They bring it up later. They use it against you in arguments. You always say this when you're mad. Or they tell other people, oh yeah, she hates her boss. She goes off about him all the time. And suddenly your private venting becomes gossip, becomes a character trait. But your pet, they have no memory of what you said 5 minutes ago. You could rant for an hour about how much you hate someone, and the next day your pet won't remember, won't hold it against you, won't change how they see you. That amnesia is psychologically liberating. You get to release the emotion without it defining you. You get to be angry without becoming the angry person. You get to be petty without becoming the petty person. Your pet gives you a place to be your worst self temporarily, knowing it won't become your permanent identity. But here's what people who vent to their pets won't admit. You're not doing this because your pet is a good listener. You're doing this because humans have failed you so completely that a silent animal feels safer than any person in your life. And understanding why that is reveals something painful about how we've learned to process emotion. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If you regularly vent to your pet instead of to humans, it's because humans have taught you that your anger isn't acceptable. Not consciously, but through 1,000 small interactions. Every time someone told you to calm down, every time someone changed the subject when you got heated, every time someone made you feel like your feelings were too much, too intense, too negative, your brain learned anger is not safe to express around humans, so you found a non-human outlet. And that's not weakness, that's adaptation. You're not avoiding connection. You're protecting yourself from the judgment that comes with being human around other humans. Because here's what society doesn't tell you. Everyone says it's okay to feel your feelings. But then when you actually do, when you're angry or bitter or mean or unfair, people get uncomfortable. They pull back. They tell you you're being too much. So you learn to be less, to feel smaller, to keep the sharp edges hidden, except with your pet. With your pet, you can have all the sharp edges you want. Let's talk about what your pet is actually doing while you vent. They're not understanding your words, obviously, but they're doing something more important. They're regulating with you. When you're pacing and yelling, your pet stays calm. They don't match your energy. They don't escalate with you. They just remain steady. And psychologically, that steadiness is contagious. It's called co-regulation. Your pet's calm presence, their steady breathing, their relaxed body language, their unbothered demeanor sends signals to your nervous system. This isn't life or death. You're safe. You can come down. And slowly, as you vent, as you release, as you expel all that built-up frustration, you start to match their energy instead of them matching yours. Your breathing slows, your shoulders drop, your voice gets quieter. By the end of your rant, you're not yelling anymore. You're just talking, and eventually you stop talking altogether because you don't need to anymore. The charge is gone, the pressure released, and your pet is still there, calm, present, unchanged by your storm. That's not nothing, that's emotional alchemy. Here's what type of person vents to their pet. The person who's been told their emotions are too big. You've been called dramatic, sensitive, over the top. So you learn to shrink your feelings around humans. But your feelings didn't actually shrink. They just went underground until you're alone with your pet and they finally have permission to be full-sized again. The person who doesn't trust humans with their anger. You've seen what happens when people get angry around each other. Relationships end. Things get said that can't be unsaid. Damage that can't be undone. So you're careful. You stay controlled around people. But that control is exhausting. And with your pet, you don't have to maintain it. The person who processes externally. You can't think your way through emotions. You have to talk them out. But most humans don't have the patience for that. They want you to process and then talk. Your pet has infinite patience. They'll sit through every rambling thought until you find clarity. the person who's been disappointed by human responses to their pain. You've vented to people before, and they made it worse. So now you test the waters with your pet first. Get it all out in a safe space before deciding if any human is worth the risk. Here's what venting to your pet reveals about you. It reveals that you're self-aware enough to know you need release. You're not suppressing, you're not pretending you're fine, you're actively managing your emotional health. It reveals that you understand the difference between venting and problem solving. You don't need every feeling to be productive. Sometimes you just need to feel it and move on. It reveals that you value emotional safety over social acceptability. You'd rather look weird talking to your cat than risk being judged by a human. And honestly, that's wisdom. Let's talk about what people say when they catch you venting to your pet. You know they can't understand you, right? They understand the only thing that matters, that I need to get this out, and they're not going to make me feel worse about it. Maybe you should talk to a real person. Maybe real people should be safe enough to talk to. That's kind of intense. Good, because the thing I'm upset about is intense, and I'm not going to shrink it to make you comfortable. People mock this because it makes them uncomfortable. Because when you vent to your pet, you're being more honest than most people can handle. You're showing your full range of emotion, the good, the bad, the ugly, and that reminds them of everything they're suppressing. So they laugh it off, call it crazy, dismiss it. But you know better. You know that what you're doing is healthy, necessary, human. Here's what I want you to know. If you vent to your pet, you're not broken. You're not socially stunted. You're not unable to connect with humans. You're someone who needs a safe place to be fully, messily, imperfectly human. And your pet gives you that. They give you permission to feel everything without fear of judgment, rejection, or consequence. That's rare. That's valuable. That's worth protecting. Your pet isn't a substitute for human connection. They're a supplement. They're filling a gap that humans can't or won't fill. And there's no shame in that. Here's the truth that people who don't do this will never understand. Venting to your pet isn't about them understanding the words. It's about you having a witness to your feelings who doesn't need the feelings to be different. Your pet doesn't need you to be calm, rational, fair, or balanced. They just need you to be. And in a world that's constantly asking you to edit yourself, to tone it down, to be more palatable, that permission to just be is revolutionary. So keep venting to them. Keep unloading your frustrations, your grievances, your irrational anger. Keep saying the things you can't say to anyone else. Because you're not losing your mind. You're keeping it. Your pet is in the other room right now. They're ready. They're always ready. Go tell them about your day. They won't judge. They won't interrupt. They won't tell you to calm down. They'll just be there. And sometimes that's all you need.